When the baby boomers die off, what is going to happen to the housing market? Well, that is a question that I see often come up in the real estate forums. People expecting the silver tsunami where all of these homes are going to come on the market and drive home prices down. But today I'm going to review an article that talks about this very topic and what it says, what is the prediction, what could happen in the future when all the baby boomers die off and their homes come up for sale on the market. My name is Dawn Dickinson. The channel is Living in Northern Arizona, where I'll talk about everything real estate and everything pertaining to living in Northern Arizona. I am also a licensed real estate agent in the state of Arizona, so if you ever have a question about buying or selling a home, please reach out to me, give me a call, text, or an email, and I will get back to you. My contact information is always in the description below. So let me start out by saying I am technically a baby boomer. However, I am right on the cusp between baby boomer and Gen X. When I was a child, I actually wasn't a baby boomer, and then sometime in the 1990s they decided to revisit the boundary cutoff years of what generations were, and suddenly the very last year of the baby boomers is the year that I was born. So now technically I'm a baby boomer, although in some other charts I am Gen X. So I know a lot of young people are sitting around thinking that, oh, when all of us old people die off, that all our house is going to go up for sale, and this is the answer to their prayers. They're going to be able to buy a house for cheap because we're going to flood the market. But I want you to say that is not necessarily so. Now, it does seem like our demographic holds about $19 trillion of real estate assets. So it does seem like tempting to think that that is going to flow the market, but realize a lot of the baby boomers are initially starting to die off now. So it's going to be a slow process. I know, like I say, I'm the very last year of the baby boomers, and I see people in my own age group that I graduated high school with dying off. Natural causes, not even the accidents or things like that. Someone in my grade just had a heart attack and died last week. A couple weeks ago, someone passing of cancer. I know I am not exempt from the possibility of having a natural death anytime soon. My father died of natural causes not much older than me. So I do know that this could be coming to me, and a lot of my people in the generation where I grew up are starting to pass away, and a lot of us do own homes. Some of us have more than one home, and I also work in a market where a lot of older people live. And so I often am selling or having a client buy homes that were sold off to the heirs of an estate of an older person who passed away. So what the market is suggesting, or what some of the experts are suggesting, though, is that really there's not going to be a silver tsunami that everybody's all excited about. It's probably going to be more of a gradual shift. And of course, the fact that people, it's a 20-year now age gap in the generation. People will die off slowly. You'll get a few houses on the market at a time, but there are other things that could also happen as well. They're saying probably only about 250,000 homes will be put on the market each year. So when you're thinking that there's a little over 4 million home transactions in the United States, 250 extra supply is not really an entirely huge amount. So it's not like it's going to flood the market. And the other thing is, and I see this as well, is some of the times you will see a home on the market and somebody has lived there for 30, 40 years and has not done any updates. So a lot of times the home is still functional. You've got the owner kept the roof up and kept the air conditioning going, but they didn't really update the inside. And a lot of the younger buyers don't want a home that looks like 1979 inside with the shag carpet and the gold wallpaper and the mirrors on the wall and the old oak or pre-oak type cabinet. So a lot of the times an investor might come in and update it, or the younger buyers just aren't interested in those homes. So that's one thing. It's actually going to put a huge opportunity for people who want to do renovation and facelifts on property, and there might be a intermediate stage where an investor buys it, fixes it up, and then it comes on the market again, and at that point the price is going to be higher because now it looks like a relatively new home inside, whereas before it would have been sold at a lower price because of renovations that would be needed to make the house look a little bit more modern. Another issue that's going to impact the affordability is, will interest rates still remain high? Now, I know right now there's been a little bit of a dip in interest rates. It's March 2025, and interest rates had been about 7%. They're slightly dipping to maybe the mid 6s, and they could go down a little bit more, but if they stay 6.5%, 7%, that still could make it difficult for younger people to buy a home because your mortgage rate is going to be high at that interest rate. Now, I know when I sometimes think 7% is a little high compared to what it has been, but my first house, I paid 8.5%, and I was thrilled because it hadn't been high. It had been like 12, then it had gone down to 11, and like suddenly in the mid 80s, it dropped to 8.5, and it's like, woo woo, time to buy a house. So, 7%, although high when the price tag is high, not relatively, if you look over the last 50 years, was really not that high. But again, if the price is high, and it could still be high because there's a lot of demand, a lot of people who have not been buying the homes because they're too high, and they're kind of waiting it out, seeing will prices go down, will interest rate go down, but there is still quite a demand for housing. So even with the additional forecasted 250,000 units put on the market every year because the baby boomers dying out, it may not lower the price that much. Okay, now I briefly touched on some of these new homes coming on the market because an older person has passed away, needs to have some renovations, that you may be competing with investors who are trying to buy the place to renovate it and fix it and flip it so that you can buy a house in move-in ready condition. So you're going to be competing with those people, so that could keep the prices still high. The other thing that you have to think of that we didn't have to deal with 10, 15 years ago is all of these large investment companies like BlackRock, Blackstone, Vanguard, and there are a few others that are buying up single-family homes in the populated areas, and they're just holding them for rental. So you're competing with companies like this, big, large corporations, institutions that are buying the houses, and it's going to be harder for young people or anybody that's a private person to compete because some of these companies are buying with cash, very favorable terms. They may be willing to pay a little bit more than it's worth to compete with you. So again, this factor could keep prices high. Now, what you might want to do if you're concerned about this, and to me this is a very big concern, maybe just keep in contact with your legislator, government officials. Say, we'd appreciate some legislation to maybe limit the amount of homes that a large corporate institution could buy. That's really the only thing I can think of to put the brakes on that. Now, I do sell primarily in an area that's not as affected. When I did live in Phoenix, you had a lot more investors to compete with, and I'm not saying that in northern Arizona we don't compete with investors, because there certainly are, but there are not as many, and it's not as coveted of a property in a small town like, say, Camp Verde, compared it to Phoenix or Chandler or Gilbert in some of those areas where there's an extremely high demand for rental property. So again, you are having to deal with investors who are doing one thing, the fix and pretty it up and flip it, and then the investors who are trying to buy and hold and keep it in their rental portfolio, and those houses may never come back on the market again if it is purchased by a corporate investor. So those extra supply coming in by the baby boomers, you're still competing with those, so that may not cause the prices to go down as much as people are hoping after all. Now, all this information I'm talking about today is taken from a blog article that I found, and I'm going to put the link to that article below. The last point of this article just states that this silver tsunami, or maybe the silver tiny wave, could present enhanced opportunities for Gen Z. Gen Z probably standing to benefit the most from the passing of baby boomers, just because of the influx of supply would be about timed right for them wanting to purchase their first home or maybe their second home. Now, there's another wild card that I'm going to throw in that was not put in this article are mentioned, but there are probably a lot of people like me. I have an adult child with a disability, and I'm concerned that when I pass away, I don't want him to be homeless. So I'm very worried about my child being homeless. My life goal now, my focus was to make it so we could have a job, which that doesn't seem to be happening. So my next life focus is to keep him from either being homeless or being put in an institution when I pass away. Now, some people are like, just put him in an institution, which to me seems a little bit cold and heartless, but just not even thinking I don't want my son to be in an institution. The cost to put your child in an institution when it's not being covered by any of the government, which it's typically not if your child is not so severe. Like if it's a high functioning, in my case, high functioning autism, you're pretty much on your own. I could probably purchase 4 houses and have mortgage payments combined that's going to be less than what it would cost my family to put him in an institution. I mean, the prices are so high for that. I mean, right now I have my mother in a memory care and I'm paying like $7,000 enough to put my mother, well, my family, to pay for my mother in memory care. And then if we have to put my son in an institution, that's probably another 10. I saw a quote for $14,000 a month. So when you think of it that way, family is a lot better off to buy a house and try to pay it off so their child can live without having to be institutionalized, and that is my plan. So there may be others like me, especially when you see the astounding rates of babies being diagnosed with autism. If they don't do something soon to figure out what's causing it, pretty much like every other child will have autism. And so you're going to be competing with that, where older generations are trying to keep the homes in their family and set it up so their children have a place to go when they pass on. And the other thing is, now if you have one child with a disability, it would be pretty sad to have all of the rest of my life resources focused on having my son a place to live. What about my poor daughter who's done nothing? So the second half of my life goal is going to be maybe to buy a house with my daughter so my daughter can get into a house, so that it's not unfair that my entire estate goes to keep my son out of an institution and my daughter gets nothing. So I do think there are going to be a lot of people in my generation, the baby boomers, that are concerned about their children, maybe more so in the past because my generation is more independent than some of the younger generations. And so maybe the parents are setting it up so that when we die, that our houses aren't just going to be sold. We're kind of setting it up so the house might be in a place where the children would want to live and be able to live, to keep my son out of an institution or keep him from being homeless. If I have a house that I can pass to him, if I have a house that I can pass to my daughter, maybe not all of those homes are going to instantly go on the market when the baby boomer generation dies. And there's the other thing too, is many people in my generation are married, so one will die and the spouse will live on for another 10, 15, 20 years. I know my mother has outlived my father for 21 years at this point, and who knows, even though she's in hospice, it could be a while. So again, those may not immediately go in the market when the baby boomers pass away. So that's, first of all, the perspective of this article that I'm going to put a link in below, and then my own little contribution of what I think, what I'm experiencing in my family, and I think I'm not alone. I hope this information is helpful to you. If you do, please do me a favor and hit the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. And again, if you ever have a question about buying or selling real estate in the state of Arizona, please reach out to me. My contact information is always in the description below, and if you give me a call or a text or an email, I will get back to you. The channel is Living in Northern Arizona. I post videos like this every single week, so I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope you found this information useful, and I hope to see you back here again on my channel next week.